Decimal Dan, the raw cent man, gives you cents for pennies whenever he can. 1 cent for a penny and 2 for 2.
And 2.5 for a ticky.
And notes and silver are worth the same. Remember, it's just a change in their name.
Hi kids. Today we're breaking down the history of the South African Rand. Now this might sound like an easy task, because that's what I thought. But oh boy, let me tell you that I was so wrong. In fact, it's actually 3 a.m. as I'm recording this voiceover because I've been spending the past 5 hours reading South African court transcripts. But enough of that.
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
So, in 1961, the Rand was introduced after South Africa gained its independence from he who will not be named. It opened at an exchange rate of 1 Rand equaling 1.4 US dollars. The baby Rand was booming with potential and South Africa was looking at a bright future, excluding the whole apartheid thing. Sadly, lack of progress and the continuation of apartheid caused volatile fluctuation for the Rand's value from then on into the early 1980s. By the mid-1980s, the rest of the world kind of got with the times and started shunning South Africa due to apartheid. Sanctions and embargoes resulted in further depreciation of the Rand. It even got so bad that the apartheid government temporarily abolished foreign currency exchange for a few days, which, of course, made it tank even more. So by 1985, 1 US dollar was now worth 2.23 South African Rand, and by 1992 it was a 3-to-1 ratio. But wait, a silver lining? At this point, Africa has now entered the mid-90s, and with it, you know what that means.
Good evening. For 27 years, 6 months and 6 days, he had been a prisoner. During that time, he became a legend, a symbol of black resistance to apartheid, and to many, he became a martyr. Tonight, he is a free man. Nelson Mandela, the leader of the African National Congress.
That's right, Nelson Mandela. 1994 brings with it the first ever open election for South Africa. Well, mostly open. The election brought in nearly half of South Africa's 40 million population to vote, and as expected, Nelson Mandela's African National Congress swept the vote and he was subsequently made president. So what's the first thing Nelson Mandela does? End apartheid. Yep. No, keep going. He deserves it. 10-minute video presentation. Sadly, however, a new government is still a risky investment, and the new constitution that Nelson Mandela helped create limited terms to 5 years. Nelson was 76 at the time and not an ideal candidate for re-election, so with investors fleeing and Mandela stepping down, the Rand continued to depreciate as Nelson Mandela spent his presidency addressing the more pressing social issues for South Africa. Enter Mbeki, the new president of South Africa. Now, Thabo Mbeki was an interesting man to say the least, but to describe his leadership capabilities, we'll say questionable at best. President Mbeki loved the internet, maybe a little too much, and often referenced Wikipedia articles in his interviews. However, his love for the internet resulted in Mbeki, the president of South Africa, getting involved with AIDS denial forums and chat rooms on the internet. Needless to say, the new presidency dropped the Rand's value from around 1/3 to 1/6 of a US dollar. This downward trend continued until in 1998, a massive depreciation caused spikes in interest rates, and 3 years later 9/11 happens, and the Rand is forced all the way down to 1/14 of a US dollar. Now that's a pretty serious drop in value, so in the spirit of President Mbeki, I consulted Wikipedia on it. Here's what they had to say.
This sudden depreciation in 2001 led to formal investigation, which in turn led to a dramatic recovery.
Not satisfied? Me neither. So I went digging. As it turns out, many of South Africa's problems, I don't even want to say most anymore after all the history I've just read, were due to globalization and international exploitation. In 2000, after the first depreciation, suspicions began mounting. People were asking questions. You know, South Africa really isn't exporting that much. So why are international crises influencing the Rand? Just where is the money going? So in 2000, detailed economic reports from the Financial Stability Forum claimed that highly leveraged institutions were driving up interest rates by short selling. Basically, it was the 2008 housing crisis, but with international currency exchange. The South African government responds to the Financial Stability Forum allegations by saying, now that's all fine and good, but where's your proof? So nothing comes of it. Then, a year later, the same thing happens following 9/11, and now the authorities are interested. Not to mention an AIDS epidemic is striking the country at the time, much to President Mbeki's disbelief. So the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development begins their investigation. I'll read the keynotes. First, the facts. So in April of 2001, $11.3 billion were traded between South African and international parties. The parties were unknown. All we knew was that the Reserve Bank reported 5.6 million foreign exchange transactions that year. With this in mind, the Department of Justice and National Constitutional Development begins an ongoing investigation into potential illegal tradings within the South African national government. And now, the pressure is on. Over the next few years, many elected officials step forward to testify on the matter. Here's an abridged list of them. The Minister of Finance, the Director General, National Treasury, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, the former Senior Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank, and the Advisor to the Governor. Now, after all the legal procedures and testimonies and social pressure, the South African government finally releases its statement.
The review proceedings are confidential for policy reasons, and in addition thereto, fall within the ambit section of 33 of the South African Reserve Bank Act No. 90 of 1989, and accordingly such information cannot be made available to any party other than those involved in the review proceedings.
Basically, they said mind your business. So a committee was formed to submit a minority report and accomplished absolutely nothing. Here's some of the highlights of that dumpster fire. So in the end, nothing came of this whole economy crashing fiasco. In the court transcripts I read, the only thing I could tell was that South Africa and Malaysia were engaged in foreign exchange and price gouging, but the degree to which names of culprits, punishments, or even a verdict all remain private information. So, for unknown reasons, the big hush-hush economy scandal pretty much ended, and from 2003 to 2007, the Rand rallied 8%. South Africa was finally in a position to grow. Enter 2008 housing crisis.
Down 1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Back to square one, basically. Also at the time, South Africa's sole energy provider, Eskom, was experiencing nearly constant power shortages and gridlocks, possibly because they were exporting energy to neighboring countries at tremendous upscale, but that's a national issue and this is globalization. So South Africa continued struggling until in 2014, mining industry setbacks caused the U.S. Federal Reserve to announce that it would be cutting back stimulus spending on emergency economies. At this point, I can only assume this is an accurate representation of what South Africa's financial headquarters looked like.
Where's the money, Lebowski? You want that money, Lebowski? Bunny says you're good for it.
Since 2014, the reasons for the Rand's struggling value have become much less shady. The 2016 Chinese recession and the subsequent withdrawal of Japan from South African trading, the UK disbanding the EU, and continued shenanigans from Eskom Holdings Company have all helped bring down the Rand together. Now you may be asking, what does this have to do with globalization? I don't really know. Now you may be asking, what does this have to do with globalization? Well, South Africa is the epitome of a victim from globalization. Throughout all of this, the vast majority of influences came from international organizations or events, and because South Africa is still a developing nation, it basically turned into the first world's unwanted stepchild. Whether or not many of the events were done with the intent of crashing the Rand, by globalizing South Africa, other countries have forced it to be influenced by international issues. That's it. See you.